are recording with, it feels so long. It's been 4 days since my last episode. TPC 127. Yeah. July 2nd. I don't think I've taken a 4-day break since I started this podcast. It feels forever, man. And it feels weird when I don't do them. And the thing is the longer I go without doing them, I get like very hesitant to do them again. I build it up in my own mind of like, oh shit, and I'm always like, why the fuck? Like, that's the entire purpose of this podcast, is for it to be relaxed, no quota, no schedule, no routine, but leave it to my anxious mind to turn it into one. So figure gotta jump back on this bike. And
it's second nature to you, man. You're just very comfortable.
I wish, man. I think it's one of those things where I find it's very similar to, like, not that I know, but like what I imagine is being in zero gravity. It's once you like push it, there's no force acting on it to stop. So once you do an episode, you do them the next day, then you just start doing them. And there's almost no opposing force until you stop. And then there's like some friction. So actually that's not at all zero gravity. That's exactly what it's like. It's Newton's first law, right? That has nothing to do with zero gravity. Clearly I've lost
my exercise routine.
Push it and then stop.
And then I can't get going again.
Yeah, but it is. And then once you start, it's pretty easy just to keep going. Just do what you did the last day.
It's getting up and getting on that stupid Peloton.
Yeah.
Is the hardest part. Once I'm on there, it's nothing. Well, I'm sitting on the couch looking at that thing. No, not going to do it.
Yeah. Once you walk into the gym, or once you just start walking on the street, and you get your music in, it literally take the first 3 steps and you're fine. But goddamn, if the climb to just get to the point where you put sneakers on, you're right. It is. Yeah, that's why I do it as soon as I wake up. I do it because the less time I give myself to think about it, the less time I have to come up with reasons to procrastinate. So if I just wake up and start, my mind is like, well, let's just take a break. Let's talk about it. And it's just like, we don't negotiate with terrorists. That's how it is. I'm just get up, go, put the sneakers on. And it's, well, should we talk about maybe, a prisoner exchange? I'm like, no, fuck off. We're going red, white, and blue. That's how I do it. I go Guantanamo Bay on it.
It worked. When I was in the best shape of my life, I was playing ball at the gym at 5:30, 3 days a week.
Yeah.
In the middle of winter, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and putting on your sweats and everything when it's 30 below.
Yeah.
Sucked. But man, once you got there and you started playing ball and start feeling good, and you feel good the rest of the day.
Feel amazing the rest of the day.
Right. And I'm not there right now, obviously. This lockdown has helped me to put on like 30 pounds.
I think it's done that with everyone. I've kept it off for most of the lockdown. I think in the last 2 weeks or so, I think I've put on a couple pounds. I think the beast finally caught up with me, but fuck it, whatever. It comes and goes. So it's the least of my problems.
I hear you.
So you sent me a link about the B-21 Raider, the Pentagon saying that they were going to deploy it to the Pacific, which I thought was insane because it has been so hush-hush. Like, I think it was John McCain, the late John McCain, I think went to Northrop's headquarters or something to go, because, he had, I guess, certain clearances. I don't know if he was on the intelligence or one of the committees, but if anyone could go see what was going on, it was him. I guess other than at the time it would have been Obama. But he went, and apparently all he was told was that said it was so under wraps, it was so strict, that they were so hell-bent on not letting anything slip out, not some F-35 fiasco where China seems to have an F-35 before we do. He said that he was told, quote, "It has wings and it is capable of flight." And that was it. That's what the B-21 Raider is. So that could be anything from the Wright Flyer to the space shuttle. So
but the ironic thing about it, Tommy, is they're releasing these sketches and they're doing little commercials that show what it's going to look like. And they're making it a very public thing.
Yeah.
So I'm very suspicious as to what the heck is really going on here. We're going to deploy our secret plane.
Yeah, right? I think because it's supposed to look so similar to the B-2, I imagine that's one reason why. Is like there's not some secret shape. It's not like the F-117. It's not the SR-71. It's little, if anything, it's going to be more geometric with even fewer lines, but it kind of looks like it's going to be the B-2
without the sawtooth trailing edge.
Yeah, so maybe that's why everything else about it, it's clearly is still hidden, but maybe this really is like they're going to change the radar absorbing material, and there's going to be a lot of internal shit, but yeah, it doesn't seem to be some like paradigm shifting shape. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's part of maybe it's a psyop. Maybe that's part of it.
But that would mean that essentially strategic bomber design reached terminal velocity in the late 80s.
Yeah.
And that's hard for me to believe.
Yeah.
That 30 years later, we've still got the same fundamental shape. I mean, look at the difference between a World War II fighter and a Korean War fighter and a Vietnam fighter and a Desert Storm fighter. Each one it's not just evolution, it's revolution.
Yeah. Yeah. And, maybe it's like the shark. They say the shark stopped evolving like 500 million years ago because they nailed it. Maybe the B-2, maybe the flying wing is just, you can do some stuff. You can change the sawtooth back. Maybe that's just if you want to just be some silent killer, maybe it's like the Great White. Maybe it's just like, hey man, that's your design. There's a lot of internal, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't look like this at all. Maybe we're going to see it. It looks nothing like this.
It could all be a great big MacGuffin.
It is. Yeah.
We just don't know. We don't know.
Yeah. But I think you pointed out in the last one of our conversations is it's odd how it's being like, it's been announced and like officially disclosed its existence long before it's at least what we know to be deployable. Normally with this stuff, it is the blackest of the black, it's in there with like the Roswell saucer. And it's not until there's some leak somewhere down the road and it's like finally they acknowledge its existence. This is weird because it's almost like an up and coming college athlete. Like they're getting hyped up before they've ever won a professional championship. It's kind of weird. This isn't what we normally do.
No, it really isn't. You think about with the F-117 and testers or somebody came out with a model kit that, of course, called the Manta, based on what everybody thought was the stealth fighter. And here it looked nothing like it. They just took the SR-71's nose and put bat wings on it.
Yeah.
And everyone was all excited, and they didn't release the reality of it really until it was used in war. So even though they acknowledged it existed in 88, something like that,
I don't know.
Nobody knew what it was capable of until that night in Desert Storm. Shock and awe.
Yeah.
I remember sitting there. I was in law school. I was directing a church choir and doing some things to earn. I called the church choir and said, "We're not coming tonight. We're going to watch Shock and Awe."
Yeah.
Because that's what it was. It was so revolutionary. Everyone was no one could believe it. And like you pointed out, when Peter Arnett's sitting there in Baghdad and trying to broadcast, and everyone was calling him a traitor and all this, and it's going off. And sure enough, static.
Yeah. It just ends. Yeah.
It was amazing. How do you make that kind of a revolutionary leap over a B-2? I don't know. Something happened in the world that's very interesting. And I'm relatively certain it's not related, but did you see that the missile factory outside of Tehran blew up the other day?
I did not see that.
Yeah. It started out as just, people in Tehran are reporting a large explosion fireball north of the city. Well, guess what happens to be there? Ballistic missile facility. And so now we've acknowledged in the press that this happened, and the story that's being sent out is this cyber warfare? I don't know. Can cyber warfare blow up a facility and create this big fireball? Maybe. I mean, they were able to get the centrifuges to spin out of control.
Stuxnet.
So maybe, but yeah, Stuxnet. But it sure looked like, to me, it looked like a precision strike.
I think maybe the B-21 got its first check, its first line on the fuselage.
But, that seems so unlike Trump for all his faults. One thing he has not done, to his credit, he's not dragged us into war. And you would think bombing a military base in Iran would take us there. But the Iranians, of course, haven't said anything. What are they going to say? Oh, they went through our airspace with impunity and bombed our capital.
Well, that's the exact argument is like why UFOs would never be disclosed. Because it's like it's like who's his face in Chernobyl? Was it Khrushchev? Our power comes from the perception of our power. If you come out and say there are Mach 50 flying saucers going over the White House and they're not ours, well, all of a sudden you don't look like big bad Uncle Sam anymore. So you're right. Do you want to come out and say those, because you can point all the fingers you want and say those big bad American capitalist pigs and the white or the great Satan, whatever those nicknames they have for us, very flattering. Yeah. But yeah, at some point you have to admit, well, how did it happen? It was a precision strike. So you got owned by the great Satan, right? You don't want to admit it.
Just came out and said, I think it was we don't have an ambassador to Iran. We have an envoy because we don't have diplomatic relations. But he came out and said President Trump has not ruled out the use of force to stop Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. Just days after this explosion at their missile factory. It's all very suspicious.
It is. I mean, are we going to be listening to the equivalent to Skunk Works in 2050? And it's, and this was the first
I won't be.
I think extension. Either we're all going to be alive or none of us will. I think there's either going to be life extension or it's going to be the pandemic. I don't think there's any middle ground, but
no in between there, huh?
No, but yeah, would it be that? One thing I always, the conspiracy that I have a particular soft spot for is do you remember the Tianjin explosions in, I think 2016, might have been 2015?
No.
It was in China. It was like some rubber plant. And there's like 3 successive explosions. I'm sure if you see one of the videos, it'll come right back to you. Because it was like, these things were insane. There are videos on YouTube where it is just insane. Like, one thing I always thought was, my favorite conspiracy is that the Chinese, I guess, president, I don't know if it was Xi Jinping at the time, whoever it was supposed to be in that city that day.
Ricochet Rabbit, Xi Jinping.
Yeah. And
sorry, that was terrible.
No, I don't give a shit, dude. I'm blue, man. It's either he was supposed to be there, I forget who, but then it was also like the day after they did like a huge devaluation of our currency. It's like all conspiracies, there's a million loose ends, and if you look at any of them, you can easily poke holes into it. But because I like them so much, I like to ignore those and just entertain the fantastic.
Yeah.
My favorite conspiracy about the Tianjin explosion is it was a rods from God from space, or it was at the time, I guess it hadn't been disclosed, but it was the successor to the B-2. But the idea is that it was an American strike.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, how do you make that quantum leap? Like the F-117 was so insane. The B-2 was so insane. Not a bomber, but the SR-71 was so insane. They all made such crazy leaps. You have to, because I think you and Aaron Aaron and I talked about this last time, but it's easy to look back at these things with all of it's classified, knowing the history, having read books, you can watch the newsreels and go, oh, they had no idea this technology existed. But you can't look at it that way. You gotta look at it right now. You have to think, what would be truly baffling? It can't be something predictable, because that wouldn't be the same quantum leap. I don't know if I'm making my point. It would have to be something insane that you couldn't imagine. Because we can imagine the F-117. We can imagine the B-2. Those are common now. What would be the next thing? Yeah, it would have to be something like, a missile silo blowing up.
Yeah, and keep in mind, I think I sent you a link. We were talking about how much the author of Skunkworks over protested about hypersonic weapons and aircraft. And it turns out the SRAM, the something air launch missile back in 1972, was hypersonic.
Yeah, I read that link before. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is 1972 hypersonic missile, which they said they didn't produce. But they had, and at that time, they had the SR-71, which was capable of strike. We know that it was.
Yeah.
So this technology's been around a long time. And then there was the unfortunate accident where an American cruise missile struck the Chinese embassy that just happened to have parts from our downed stealth fighter. It was just an errant missile.
When was that?
Oh, you haven't heard about that?
No.
Well, when they in Croatia, when they actually shot down the F-117,
mm-hmm.
and the rebels who found the wreckage sold it to the Chinese, and the Chinese, of course, carted it off to their embassy. Well, it just happened that a U.S. cruise missile went off course and struck that embassy.
Oh, shucks.
Yeah. Now, this was in the Clinton years. So,
how does that happen?
Yeah. So it's not that far-fetched to think that this was an actual strike against Iran. But it couldn't have been an F-117 or an F-22 or an F-35. The range to get there, where would they have taken off from?
What is that? What is that new drone that they say is going to be a tanker?
The RQ-170.
Yeah, it's one thing I've often thought about is imagine having a stealth refueler.
Right.
So if you have a stealth craft, you can go stealth refuel and you can keep going.
If it is in fact a tanker, you're absolutely right. But those drones that tend to be pretty slow, don't they?
I don't know. It is odd thinking about it. I also often think about, what about the stealth chopper that went down in the Bin Laden raid?
Yeah.
Like, whatever happened to those pieces?
Boy, I know that they wanted to get them back. I think that Pakistan gave some of them back after holding on to them long enough to probably 3D model them and sell them to China. I'm sure it was basically a silent black helicopter like we've heard about for all these years.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It gets into so many like shadows, and conspiracies start to become plausible. But it's back to hypersonics. So the one thing that stuck out to me about that article that you sent me from the drive is talking about, slapping a nuclear warhead on this thing, and it would be for almost like if you were to just be like I think they said snaking through enemy defenses. So it'd be like you're underground, you have your own laser, and you're just burning a hole directly where you need to go.
Yeah.
The idea was to give these B-52s some hypersonic stealth nuclear tipped missiles, and they would you don't have to nuke the whole nation. You can just sort of burn a line in the Soviet Union radar defenses. They would never pick up the stealth. And then when the nuke went off, the radar would not exist anymore. I'm sure I'm butchering this. And the B-52 would fly in and on its way. Once it dropped its payload, then it would probably be shot down, but it would have the ability to get there. But they also mentioned it would have a secondary role of able to shoot down early warning radar Soviet aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about it being a secondary role and a much less known secondary role. But I think that's kind of weird because we also just found out in the last month or so about the secondary role of the F-117 being able to shoot down a Soviet AWACS. And it's the same, it's almost in like the same light, a secondary role of shooting down some radar detecting plane. I'm trying to piece the puzzle pieces together. What's we're getting these crumbs and they look similar. And it's 40 years down the road after. I don't know what it points to, but you're right. Hypersonics, the F-117 being able to do things that we didn't think they could do. Ben Rich just almost humorously denying hypersonics in Skunk Works, while unofficially saying that the D-21 drone was hypersonic by saying it went 4,000 miles an hour. That's Mach 5.2. Despite, in other terms, in other parts of the book saying that hypersonic would never be possible, not even with the drone. I'm ranting, but there are some, I don't know. I feel like we're archaeologists and we're unbrushing a couple pieces. Did we come across an ancient chicken, or did we just come across a T-Rex? What's poking through the surface?
And the stark contrast to all of this is the B-52. Designed in the late post-war years. It'll be flying for 100 years. And we're saying, they couldn't possibly be not made this advance in all this time. But here we are with that Stratofortress flying for 100 years.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe you could say to some extent, when you find something that works.
Yeah, don't fix what isn't broken.
Right. And on the other hand, you've got, I'm sure you've seen that story about the F-22 flying upside down above the Iranian F-14 and telling them you better go home. And they didn't even know it was there until they turned on the radio.
Isn't that Top Gun?
No, that's real. That's a real story. It really happened. So, I mean, yes, it was in Top Gun as well, but it's not realistic in Top Gun. But this really happened. And so you can imagine how they could sneak up on a Russian AWACS. You can fly right up above an enemy warplane. An F-14 is not exactly cutting edge, but still a very dangerous plane. And they don't even know you're there. So whatever happened in Iran, whether it was a hypersonic weapon, I mean, who knows how far away it was launched, by what platform, whether it was a cyber attack, I don't know, but I really want to find out. Because there's just too much going on. I think you're like you said, it's like the blind man trying to describe an elephant. Yeah. One guy's got the tail, one guy's got the nose, one guy's got a foot, side, and we're all confused. Right. Yeah. Everybody gives a different description, but the truth is probably nothing like we anticipated. The rod from God. I mean, maybe the space plane had something to do with it. I don't know. Yeah. Who knows? Yeah. And I guarantee you the fact that they let us know when that thing is launched and when it's recovered, that's just one. Who knows how many of them they've got that do that. Then they're not telling us when they're up there and when they're not. Yeah. And there's no reason for them to say it. It is trying to, some blind guys trying to describe an elephant. What is all going on? Why are the F-117s not retired? Why does the B-21 look like the B-2? Is the F-35 a front to funnel money to other programs? What never gets brought up is, what about the 2037 bomber? I think this was announced late 2000s, maybe early 2010s, that it was going to replace, I believe it was either going to replace the B-1 or B-52, but that doesn't make sense because they want the B-52 flying till 2050. Right. But it's called the 2037 bomber because it's supposed to come in 2037. And I think the Wikipedia page, I haven't looked at it in a while, but they go on to talk about the B-21. So this isn't some mixing of names. Right. Different program. So what is that? What is the 2037 bomber? What about railguns? Do we even need these hypersonic stealth cruise missiles? If you get a railgun, that is hypersonic. I mean, that's a shell, man. You put some fins on that thing, or get just that kinetic. You don't even need a warhead, do you? No, something like that. You shoot that puppy 200 miles. Or my favorite idea, putting a railgun on a 747. Just get that fucker. You get that thing go right at the border of the enemy nation. Like the U-2 will go right up on the border, but it's at 70,000 feet. So do some trigonometry and it can look how many miles into it, right? Yeah.
Imagine if you get a C5 or a 747 up there.
Wow.
Put a railgun on that thing, man. Load the whole shit. They have the YAL 2000, right? That B-40 or not B-47, B-52 loaded with power banks, and it's supposed to be one big laser, and it was going to shoot down ICBMs. I think it was right after 9/11 when it was just a defense contracting field day. Shit, why not put a railgun on that thing, man?
Why not? And they have lasers on Navy ships.
Yeah.
That they're admitting that they have.
Oh, wait. Oh, they are? I don't know why. I didn't know that.
USS Ponce. It had a laser on it, and it was a command and control ship with a laser. And they just retired the Ponce, but the laser's been remounted on another ship. I don't remember what it was, but it's certainly, the Zumwalt could certainly carry that thing. It generates more than enough power. And this is out in the open. We're talking about this.
Yeah, so imagine putting a laser, which they've already done. But imagine you don't need a C-130. You get my favorite concept, an AC-5. That just imagine putting one railgun on that thing, because that thing's too big and lumbering to fly a tight circle. But if you put a railgun on that and you put it right up on the border, boom, get that thing going in and just do. What if you could just let off a salvo like a C-130, but its range is just 100 times as far?
I just wonder about the recoil of putting a railgun.
That would take much smarter men than you and I.
Yeah. Big rubber band. I don't know.
Yeah. Seriously, put it on It's not for us to decide.
No. Flying cannon, though, it's been done before on a smaller scale.
The A-10 literally is a flying cannon. C-130 literally has a 105 on it.
Yeah.
I mean. And wasn't there some fuss a couple weeks ago? I've been completely unplugged from everything for the last 4 days. But wasn't there a big fuss a couple weeks ago that Trump announced a hypersonic missile at
he said it's coming. Yeah, he said it's going to be the best ever. The best,
the biggest, bigliest, fastest. Yeah. But didn't he announce it? He said something. I remember hearing it on the news. My parents were watching, and something about, go over 5 times. Or I think he said it's not it's not hypersonic threshold like Mach 5, because hypersonic covers Mach 5 and up.
Yeah. So
it's and up. I mean, when I was in high school, they launched the X-43A Wave Rider.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even remember what that thing got to. I think it was Mach 9. Might have been more than that. So he just announced it again out in the open, a hypersonic missile that could hit a target within 11 inches from he said something like 5,000 miles.
Yeah.
So what is all going on? You're right.
At the same time.
You got to take all these pieces. Yeah, these pieces that normally get sprinkled years apart. We're getting 10 of them, all within 2020.
But my friend, it seems like China doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
Look at what they're doing with Hong Kong. It's not like they're worried that we're going to do something to them.
Yeah. And are they in India still waving their dicks around at their border?
They're trying to back down, and Trump is actually doing his best to support that. Which, I don't know, it's in our best interest to stir that pot up a little bit.
Yeah.
But China's forward deployed one of its amphibious assault carriers, and they've just passed this legislation in Hong Kong where they jail you for criticizing communism. And I mean, it's
always works out well, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Always ends well.
It's really interesting. They don't seem to care. I think they're gambling that Trump is too engaged with COVID-19 and the race riots and all that he's not going to do anything. We'll see. But it's really brinksmanship.
Yeah. We haven't had this since the Cold War, right?
No. China's no Soviet Union, but
they're also not Iraq. They're
right.
They're also not one of those sand buckets. It's because early 90s, late 90s, 2000s, even with Kosovo and Serbia. All of those, it was like we could do brinkmanship with them because we weren't worried about actually going over the line. There was no let's hope they don't call our bluff. When they call our bluff, we'd send in 100,000 troops, F-117s, and we'd fuck them 6 ways from Sunday. And we weren't worried about really any, sure, you get a tongue lashing from the UN, but whatever, that's a rite of passage. It's not since, really starting with what? Like the Berlin airlift, that was the first time where it was like we kind of both met, right? It's the two dogs both met and their leash was just right there. And it was like, you don't want to be the weak man. You don't want to be a pushover. But if you do try to establish dominance, you might wipe out civilization.
Cuban Missile Crisis.
Exactly.
Perfect example.
He just blinked. Yeah. We haven't had that since what, 91, 89, 91. Now it kind of, anyone else does it, America, rah, rah, we'll go in there and fuck them up and, let them know it's up. What happened right at the beginning of Trump's administration? Who's the country that he shot? Like, there's some gassing and he shot there's a salvo of cruise missiles.
Syria?
Might have been Syria. Might have been, I don't know. Yeah, he shot 70 cruise missiles or something. Some compounds. That's a case of we're not afraid to actually throw the punch. There's no, I'm gonna hit you, whatever, I don't want to fight today. That's one of the cases where America goes up and says, I'm gonna hit you, and they do it, and then we knock them the fuck out. China is they're just crazy enough and just powerful enough that do you want to call their bluff?
And also we have to keep in mind that China is very different because we're not engaging them in Africa or
no proxy war.
Middle East. We would be engaging them mostly on the high seas and a long way from home.
Yeah.
Right in their backyard. So, and they've got 1.3 billion people. There's no way we could go in to invade China any more than we can invade Russia. So where exactly are we engaging them? It'd be on the South Pacific, right? Southeast Asia.
I'm sure there are some proxy wars somewhere. We're not, there's no way that we're China and India. That's, if it's too juicy to not push one side or the other. Every conflict is forever, going back 10,000 years. You're never going to just sit back and be like, let's see how this one plays out. You've always got an agenda that if you can push it forward even an inch, you're going to do that.
Yeah.
I imagine we're doing all sorts of covert shit in Hong Kong, if only just cyber. I'm sure we're doing black ops shit there. I don't know if men on the ground, I don't know. Sending over Dale, I don't know. But
probably, James Bond went to Hong Kong all the time. It must be a very good place to be a secret agent.
Dale actually did serve as a Dale Comstock Delta Force.
Mm-hmm.
He actually did serve as a bodyguard to some guy in Hong Kong.
No kidding.
Who was a billionaire. Or it might even juicier. It might have been Shanghai. Wow. I don't remember. But yeah, Dale's been over there.
Wow.
I just don't see any of this not going on. I just don't think that's how the game is played. Maybe I have a fantastic James Bond, Jason Bourne, 007, image in my head and none of this shit actually happens.
Right.
But there's also too much stuff that gets declassified 50, 60, 70 years after the fact. And you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Holy shit. We were doing that. We were there.
You're absolutely right. Even Bond's creator, Ian Fleming, a lot of the stuff that he wrote about, he knew from being in the SAS. He was the real thing.
Yeah.
And we didn't know that till years later, but He was real. He showed up in Operation Paperclip a little bit.
Yeah. Didn't one of his games or something, or one of his books, didn't it have to do with the F-117 having an air-to-air capability?
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember which one. Red Storm Rise? I don't remember which one it was.
Yeah. You're right. I don't know what it would be. I'm trying to.
Well, I mean, and it has no radar. So how does it lock in on anything?
No radar that we knew of, right? I mean,
that we knew of, yeah.
I mean, it's at a point now where it's like, I mean, so we thought, because up until 2020, it was, well, this thing didn't have an air-to-air. So if it's now, it's okay. Well, it did have an air-to-air, but it didn't have radar. It's like, fool me once, right?
Infrared? I don't know. I mean, you have all kinds of different ways to lock onto an enemy aircraft. Infrared, radar, things we don't know about, I guess. But how do you put an air-to-air capability in an aircraft that it's not really a fighter? That's a misnomer. It doesn't even have radar.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I don't either. And that's where we need Aaron here to tell us how we do
exactly.
that. Because I'm
Aaron,
at the end. I don't know.
Aaron's involved. Make no mistake. Aaron's involved.
Yes.
Does stuff for NASA. I don't trust him. Aaron, if you're listening, I don't trust you. But do you give any, I don't know, legitimacy to the idea of, it has a million different names, but it's what ties in the Aurora, the successor to the SR-71, and it's the idea that there is a plane much like the XB-70, and this thing is called the SR-75 Penetrator, and it looks a lot like the XB-70, but instead of going Mach 3, it's hypersonic. It can go to, actually, it has a lot of the same specs or performance specs as the D-21. It can go 4,000 plus miles per hour. It can go to 125,000 feet. And then and this is all, there's no fact in any of this, so tune out if you're hoping for that. And then on top of it, it was supposed to carry the SR, I think it's the SR-91, but the SR-74. So the SR-75 is the mothership that was about the same size as the XB-70. And the SR-74 was what we would also call the Aurora. And it can't take off from a runway. It's a parasitic reconnaissance plane that has to be launched from the spine of this craft up at hypersonic speeds already. It ignites the rockets, and it can push something like Mach 20 plus and basically go into orbit. And it's pretty similar to like the idea back in the 50s of the X-20 Dinosaur, DYNASOAR, dynamic soaring, which itself comes from the Silbervogel back into the 40s. But those were to be launched on rockets, whereas the Aurora is supposed to be launched off the back of this XB-70-ish mothership. I feel like that doesn't get as much talking about, because even with the B-21 or the 2037 bomber, or even in 2013, them talking about the Aurora, there's still a really big old gap between the SR-71's retirement and present day, because there's no official successor.
Oh, satellites.
Yeah.
Taking it all over.
Yeah.
I don't believe it for a minute.
Yeah, because you have all these former guys saying that there's nothing like overflight. So satellites, you'll always be able to predict them, detect them, schedule their patterns.
But one thing Aaron said was very, very humbling to me. He had a comment about this, and he said, "Well, my orbital mechanics are a little bit rusty."
Yeah.
You're what?
Yeah. Right. Do you know who you're talking to, man?
Your orbital mechanics. Don't bring science into this.
Yeah, don't bring science into this. It's supposed to be pure fun, not based in fact. But I don't know, man. I'm like racking my brain right now Is it all this simple? Is there just the B-21 in the pipeline, the F-22 successor, the PCA, the 2037 bomber? Is the B-52 just going to keep getting upgraded? Is it really just that?
No, absolutely not. When has it ever been just the things that have been publicly acknowledged? Ever?
What a great psyop that would be.
Yeah, well, sure would be. Sure would be, just to intimidate people into wondering what's really out there.
And then have nothing come out. It really just be what you were saying. I mean,
we told you there was nothing else. What are you talking about?
Yeah. That's what I said the other week about the F-117 with the air-to-air. Maybe this wasn't a capability. But by saying it 40 years later, and it's like, we didn't even know about that, that sets up okay, well, now we know that they're always lying.
Right, always.
What better way to come in and just put it all out on the table, knowing that they're not – you can tell them the truth, and they are never going to believe you.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. That's absolutely right. Never trust the government.
Yeah, and then you've really fucked everyone for the next century because it's – now we don't know if it's a lie or the truth.
Yeah, we don't, and we're never going to know. There will always be things we never hear about. Thankfully, that are never used in war. And I'm sure there are many things that were used in war that the other governments know we have that we don't know. The average Joe has no idea. I'm sure. Not just in terms of fighter craft and reconnaissance planes and bombers, but in terms of personal equipment, weapons, sensors, all kinds of things that we don't know about. I'm sure Dale Comstock didn't tell you everything he carried with him and what he used it for. And
I think Dale tells me about 1% of what he's done.
Probably about, right.
Yeah, no, you're right. Stuff that doesn't even, yeah.
You know, you watch James Bond and you think, oh, that's incredible. That's stupid. It's so outrageous. But a lot of that stuff has its basis in reality. You know, the car, when he got the Aston Martin that could project images on itself so it would become invisible.
Yeah.
That's real tech.
Yeah. No,
real tech.
Yeah. No, I absolutely believe that. Yeah. That's not sci-fi anymore.
No, it's true stealth invisibility.
Is it just another level of like, we're chasing the wrong rabbit hole? We're thinking that all these bombers and penetrators and reconnaissance and fighters, and we're thinking, here's what they're telling us. The reality is a level above that. Could it be that it's not that it's up here, it's that it's over here? It's the, look at this hand. What if it's just something, it's not drone? What if it's just nanobots? I don't know. What if there's just like a next generation? What if we've achieved quantum supremacy with computing, and then we no longer need better aircraft because we can just hack whatever? Cool. You got your own B-2. We can hijack.
I don't have any doubt that there's a skunk works that's into quantum computing. I don't doubt that for a second.
In James Bamford's NSA the ultra secret Shadow Factory, the ultra secret post 9/11 NSA. It's a book that came out in like 2004. But he talks about towards the end of the book, and I remember looking it up because I wanted to find more about it. I can't. But he talks about IARPA, and it's intelligence, but it's the NSA's DARPA.
Yes.
And like DARPA's secret, but it's also like sexy. You hear about it, right? It's in movies. Oh, this is new DARPA tech, right? DARPA. Ooh, DARPA. You know, they created the internet in the 50s, but I'd never heard of IARPA until that book. And I think
it's there.
Yeah. So that means there's a DARPA of computing.
Yeah.
Because dude, if you can achieve quantum supremacy, you don't need to make the next generation bomber. You can just hijack theirs and fly it into a mountain, or fly it over the wrong target.
More than that.
You can do whatever. Take a Chinese bomber and go put it right over the UK. Bomb the UK, now justify an invasion of China. You can do go bomb China. Go put it in the ocean.
Yeah.
Go do something weird. Go put it in Madagascar. Like, what if that's just like, because that would be the ultimate mind fuck, is if everyone's looking for what's in Skunkworks, what's at Groom Lake, what's at, and in reality, it's not even like a physical thing. It's just software.
And that software is the key to AI.
Yeah.
Which is the key to the true next generation of weaponry.
If you get AI, yeah, you don't. I think let me know how long you can go. By the way, I know you got.
I don't even know what time it is. Oh, it's 5-1.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm good for right now. We can go to 1 o'clock.
All right. Yeah. Yeah, because that's the more I'm thinking about it, I think that's what it would be. Is it wouldn't even because in Skunkworks they talked about how they made false user manuals for U2 that flew slower and lower than the CIA U2.
Yes.
And then they had the CIA disperse these artificially aged manuals with coffee stains and cigarette burns and grease, and they yelled them, they put them out in the sun, and then those sneaky motherfuckers went and they dispersed them in the Soviet Union. The Soviets found this going, the U2, like the next generation is actually worse than the previous. Meanwhile, non-sci-fi, we're building a Mach 3, 85,000 foot SR-71, and we're like, oh no, look at the U2 over here. Meanwhile, on the edge of space, that's happening. And that's not conspiracy. That's what we know what happened.
Yeah.
What makes you think that the B-21 is being deployed to the South China Sea? Ooh, this is what it looks like. The Aurora is going to come out. Watch out. And there's something else, whether it's a craft or whether it's software.
Right. Yeah. Nanobots. Could be just about anything. And you're right. We probably are so far off when we'll look at this in 10 years and say, man, we were so misled.
Yeah. Just butchered.
I can think of an example just from my life. I just got this MacBook Pro. I had my last MacBook since 2013. The difference is almost indescribable. And it's just a MacBook.
Yeah.
Updated. Every bit of the technology is incredible. And the way it works with software and the internet and the audio video capabilities, it's unbelievable what they fit into this thing. And this is like the bare bones basic.
Yeah. Freshman in college.
Bro.
Yeah. I got one last August. I got a 2019.
Mm-hmm.
I had an August 2014 before that, and I had an August 2009 before that. So I remember when I got the 2004, I ended up breaking it. But like getting this one and looking back to that one, yeah. And you're right. This is just the MacBook.
Right.
It's the opposite of covert.
Exactly.
By the time one's released, you're disseminating official rumors for next year.
And all that is packed right in here, and more. This you can't see it because of the background.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about. It's all in there. Probably more computing power than an F-117 ever dreamed of, or even an F-22.
Maybe even the first gen B2. I don't know. That thing came out in '89, man. That came out before. It came out like 7 years before N64.
Isn't that amazing?
So I know we got another minute, but it almost sucks because it gets to this point of like potential realities and possibilities that it starts to get so off in the ether, in the upper atmosphere, no pun intended, that it almost has as much credibility as any wacky conspiracy theory. Because once you get down to trying to really, what could it really be? Is it just software, quantum supremacy, IARPA? Well, now you're just opening the floodgates to it could be anything. And now you're back at square one. It could be anything. All right. Great progress, man. It could be anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, AI is getting so advanced. I just saw last night some dude made a new Iron Maiden song using AI and sampling all their lyrics and their music literally created an Iron Maiden song without Iron Maiden.
Oh, so not. Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
That's like the deep fake of. I remember seeing a comment about something like that on a Joe Rogan episode. And it was like, there are now so many thousands of hours of Joe Rogan talking with so many different angles and saying so many different words that you could now create almost like a Turing test Rogan episode. You could make a new one and slip it in there.
Yeah.
Who the fuck would know?
Nobody. And maybe it's already been done.
That's what I mean by like, it could be something not up here, but over here.
Yeah.
Like maybe it has nothing to do with technology. Maybe it's deep fakes, like true fake news. Like
it could easily be done, and it has been done. There's one going around of Obama in Germany or somewhere saying the average citizen is too simple to make their own decisions. They have to submit to the new world order.
Oh yeah. And he never said that. But it's
no, he didn't say that. But it sure looks real.
Fake.
Yeah. That's for sure a reality.
But now you got to look at where we are right now in this conversation, entertaining these things as possibilities. We are now back at square one of just sounding like just whack jobs. It could be a fake video of making fun of and it could be nanobots and rods from God and AI, and it's just like, okay, man. Like, all right, take your man.
On your tinfoil hat now.
Yeah, but like, the truth hides itself.
That'd be a good name for the podcast. You could call it the tinfoil hat.
The tinfoil hat? I don't know. Tinfoil hat. I might change that retroactively, but I got to get some more legitimate guests first before I can throw it away as the tinfoil hat. Yeah, maybe I'll.
It is fun though.
Yeah, maybe I'll make like Joe Rogan has fight companion episodes.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like officially JRE. They're just commentating on MMA.
Uh-huh.
Maybe if the podcast blows up years down the road and it's actually making money, I'll do like tinfoil. I'll do tinfoil companion instead of fight.
There companion. We go.
I'll do tinfoil companion, and it will just be like understood from the get-go. Like, hey, you don't need to preface it by saying, "Okay, I got a funny idea." It will just be expected. Hey, you're coming. This is what this episode is like. There doesn't have to be any preface. Okay, like Aaron, like he's like, I work for NASA, but like, no, you just come in there and be like, okay, this is what I think's going on, and it's almost it's like non-canonical. It's off the record.
There we go.
Tinfoil
I like that.
companion. I might have to start that, man. Brilliant, Paul.
Idea.
Thank you.
You're ready for a spinoff.
Yeah, tinfoil companion. I'm literally writing that down. Yeah, tinfoil companion. I'll just model it after Rogan's fight companion. Paul Whitcomb, thank you, sir. It was 1 p.m. your time, and thank you for helping me get back on the wagon, knock a podcast out. Hopefully,
you're welcome, my friend.
Thank you very much. Stay safe, and yeah, hopefully shit doesn't pop off in China.
Hopefully not. We'll find out.
All right, man. I'll see you.
Be well.
Bye. Peace. Thank you.